There you go. Okay, so yesterday we have done the Sccm installation. So I know that you guys were there till 2012 2012 SP2 installation. So after that I've installed R2 SP1 and then cumulative update 3, right? So now let me show you the console. Since we'll be using this console multiple times, let me pin it to the taskbar. So how many of you have worked on the SCCM console, have seen the console and worked on it?
I'm working on it.
So that's Anil, right?
Yes.
Okay. Amar?
I've also seen the console for certain, inventory kind of reports when we're trying to pull out. For that reasons, we have.
Okay, okay. And Manju and Sai?
I also saw that uh, this is the same console I do have right now. I'm seeing the same thing.
Okay, okay. Sai, you have worked on the console, right?
No, I just in the lab purpose I have seen it. That's it.
Okay, okay. Fine, makes sense. Okay, so first of all, let's check the version. If we are on the right version or not. So we are on R2 SP1 and then the console version is 1403, which is for the CU3, right? So we are on R2 SP1 CU3, that's the latest. And see, if I have to explain this entire console, first of all, I want you to make familiarize with the console where we'll have what are the different components that we have in different sections so that you know where to go when I as part of the sessions when we talk about software distribution or administration part, so you'll know where exactly to go for different activities and tasks, right? Okay, so let's start with bottom to top, right? So the first one is administration, right? Under administration, so this is the area where you will have all the administrative tasks like creating any new site servers or on the existing site server if you want to install new roles, like we have discussed about management point, distribution point, but I told you that there are almost like 12 to 13 different sites roles, right? SCCM roles. So if you want to install those roles, right, new servers, if you want to build new distribution points, if you want to build, or if you want to create boundaries, or if you want to discover these computers, right? So for any administrative related tasks, so high level, if I have to say that high level SCCM, if you're on L3 or if you're a consultant or if you're the SCCM administrator, so this is the area where you'll be working on, right? So let me expand just to give you a quick overview. So this is where you create discovery methods, boundaries, right? And I'll just tell you the most important things, and most of the times if you, the task that you will be working on. So cloud distribution points, or if you want to connect with the cloud services like Intune, right? So this is where you do sites. So this is our primary site, right? And let us see what are the roles you have here. As you can see, it says it is the component server. So any server for that matter, if it has a configuration manager service, it is called as component server. So that's immaterial. And but as you can see, it is the distribution point, it is the management point, and it is the site database server because you have data SQL also on the same box. In production, the SQL will not be on the same box, right? You'll have a separate server for a SIM database. So in this case, it itself is the site database server, right? And since this is the server where you have primary site installed, so this is the server on which you have first installed the primary site, right? So that's the reason it is also called a site server, right? There's a difference between site server and site system. Site system is kind of, if I have to go back to your Active Directory days, so you have domain controller, right? So that can be considered as a site server. But all the other servers like DHCP, DNS, and anything else, so all of them are member servers, right? It is, they have a portfolio, they have a role of Active Directory domain. Like DHCP is a role, right? So since they have a role, part of the domain, but since they are servers, they are called as member servers, right? Similarly here also, site systems are those where you have at least one or more of the roles installed on them. But site server is the one where you have installed the primary site or secondary site or the cache, right? Only if you have primary, secondary, or cache installed on that box, then only it is called site server. All other roles installed, it is site system. So this machine itself is a site system, it is a site server. Since SQL is installed, it is the site database server, and itself is a management point, DP, and also since configuration manager service is running, it is a component server as well, right guys? So tomorrow if you want to add more roles, so you just go here and say add site system roles, so you can keep on adding more roles to the same server. And then since I told you this is the administrative node, you have the security thing. So what we call as RBAC, role-based access control. So you can create the administrative users. You can tell, okay, these are the users who will be using Sccm console, right? And then you can create security roles saying that, okay, this particular anybody who is under this role should have access to operating system node only. They need to perform only operating system deployments. Okay, anybody who is part of this particular role, they have access to, they are like L1 and L2 guys. They need to have only access to particular nodes wherein like adding users to the collection, adding computers to the collection. So based on your activities, you can create security roles, right? And so these are built-in roles. Apart from that, you can create your own roles as well. And then there is scoping. So you'll scope and say that, okay, uh, till what level you'll be having that permissions. So we'll go through each one of them.
Manohar,
Yes, Manju.
uh, yeah, sorry to disturb you. Actually, before going to the in detail inside outer whatever the outer line, I mean, those all options, asset and compliance, after the manage monitoring administration. I'm not aware about it. What actually it stores and what purpose we will have to utilize. Then, if we start from there, I would get a bit of clarity because
Sure, Manju. Sure, I got it. Okay, so I'll take a step back. So I'll not go in detail of this. So yeah, so any kind of administrative tasks. So this is where we are going, right? And now if I go to the second one, which is the monitoring node. So monitoring node, as the name suggests, so you will have all the reportings. So currently if you see, there will not be any reports here, right? But the moment you install reporting services point, you will have some 200 built-in reports, right guys? So basically you'll come to monitoring node for 2-3 reasons. One is if you have any site related issues, right? If the entire site is down, or in the site if a particular DP is down, right? So you'll come here and you'll find the system status. So this is where you'll have the different component status saying that which has any issues, or right. So this is where you'll check for all kinds of errors. One is related to the site, and the other one is related to any kind of distribution that you have done. You have deployed some packages, applications, or operating systems. So for any such reasons, you'll come to the monitoring node. You have reports, you have status, and then you have queries as well. If you want to write, you can write queries, and there are also some built-in queries, right guys? So this is that area where all the monitoring things will happen. Now if you go to the software library, as the name indicates, so there are only three things you distribute. What is that you distribute? You distribute either a software package, you distribute a patch which is released by Microsoft, you distribute an operating system image, right? So anything that you distribute is part of software library. As you can see, application management, so you can create applications, packages, app-v applications, or these Windows apps which are side-loaded, right? So all kinds of apps, applications, even iOS apps, Android apps, so everything. So applications, packages, app fees, anything related to application, this is where you create and then you distribute. Anything related to the patches, like Microsoft release patches, right? It could be critical patches, or it could be service packs, it could be upgrades or language packs, whatever. So any KBs released from Microsoft, this is where you will have them, all software updates, right? And then you have different groups, packages, and rules, which I'll explain in the session when we go into software update management. So anything which is related to patch management, this is where you go. And coming to operating system deployments, so when we are talking about operating system, so it is not just the operating system, right? So you want to build a machine. When you're trying to build a machine, right from the hardware layer, like the drivers, right? After that, the OS, and on top of, even before starting the OS, you require the boot image, and to club all of them together, you require a task sequence. So everything is involved in operating system. So when we talk about OSD, so this is the main section I will be talking about, how to create drivers, driver packages, and task sequences. So all that will cover up here. Okay. And finally, the easiest part, which is, as the name suggests, assets and compliance. So what is that you're managing from Sccm? Okay? Who are your target audience? So the target audience are either users or computers, right? So you'll have all the users that you're managing in your environment and all the devices that you're managing, right? And then you'll have collections. Collections can be considered as something like your Active Directory groups. So in Active Directory, you'll see users, computers, and then you group them together, right? If you wanted to push a kind of any group policy, or if you want to give a permission, right? It could be NTFS permissions or any other permissions. So what you do, you group them together, then you give permissions to a particular resource. Similarly here also, to group users together and to group devices together, you have something called collections. So you group them, put into a collection, and then on top of that collection, you can deploy whatever you want. It could be software, patch, or OS, or you can find any compliance settings. So everything will be done under this area to create or import or discover users and then grouping them together. That's what you do it here, right? Apart from them, there are some advanced concepts as software metering, compliance, and other stuff. So when we go in detail, we'll talk about them. Guys, make sense? Any questions? Okay, so since we are okay with the console now, we know what do we have on the console and under which node. And the above one, what you are seeing here, right? This is the kind of an action pane. So it is nothing but whatever you get by right clicking a particular device, right? So what and all you can do on this device. So all those are here. So kind of the action pane. So it'll be keep on changing for uh, based on the highlighted item, whatever you select, right? I don't have any applications to show, but based on whatever you select here, so these are the activities that you can perform on those selected highlighted items. So that's the reason this area is called an action pane, and this area you can consider as a results pane, right? So when you click and perform something, you can see the wizards and windows following it. Okay, so now let me go back and talk about some theory part here. So guys who have already worked on Sccm, okay, can you tell me what is the first step? Now we have just installed Sccm 2012 R2 SP1 CU3, right? Our motto is to start managing clients. My end goal is managing the clients, right? So I want to have managed clients. So what are the steps? What do you think I should be starting with? From where do you think I should be starting with?
Discovery of the assets.
Okay, so discovery of assets. Mhm. Then Anil,
Compatibility. Not sure.
Anil, you're not sure. Amma, you're saying compatibility?
Yeah, operating system compatibility.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Will operating system be a constraint?
Of the client machine?
Yeah, to install SCCM client.
No, no. Most of the times, no. So, okay, so discovery of assets, that's a valid point. And Sai?
No idea.
Okay, okay. No, the basic mode of asking this question is just to make you think about it. Even if you don't give any answer, that's fine, but the only motto is just to think, okay, now I have a console, I have a system environment with me, and I know my main motto is to start managing the client machines, right? I have to manage the client machines. That means the end goal is to distribute software, distribute OS and all that. So before that, what should I do?
You have to install the SCCM client.
Okay, perfect. We need to install the SCM client agent, right? So now I'll try to connect the dots, okay? So first of all, if you want to manage the client, so the very first thing which comes into our mind is, okay, so we need to start installing SCM client agent on the end machines so that this end machines will start talking to the management point, so, and I can start pushing my applications and whatever, right? So we think about installing the client agent. So if you want to install client agent, you should know who are your target audience. You should know the computers. But where are the computers? The computers are in Active Directory. They are not in your SCM console. When you see in your SCM console, there are no computers. They are just sitting in the Active Directory, right? So first of all, you need to bring them from Active Directory to your SCM console. Anil, could you please mute yourself, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, you wanted to bring them from Active Directory to your SCM console, right? So that's the first step. That is what we call as discovery. So where are you discovering? You're just taking a torchlight and discovering in your Active Directory domain, saying that, okay, do we have any computers? You're checking over there, discovering them and pulling them into your SCM console, right? I'm just talking about talking in as much possible of layman language. So you are first discovering from AD, taking all the computers. Then the second thing is you wanted to install SCM client on them, right? So before installing SCM client, it should know if the moment you put a SCM client, you have to also put to which site it has to talk to which management point it has to talk to. All this information it needs to know. So how do you define it? So after discovering the assets, you need to define your boundaries. So what will happen is, see, if you don't define the boundaries, so for example, there are a bunch of people, okay? There are a bunch of people, you wanted to onboard them into your company, right? So first what you're doing, you're hiring them or whatever, right? You're hiring those people. Once you hide them, you will tell that, okay, your department is so and so, your department is so. You have to have those different departments within your company saying that this guy should go to this guy to, so you are just starting a startup, right? It's a new startup that you brought up. So what you have to do, first thing is you have to find for your hiring thing. Then you should have different departments, different boundaries, where in which boundary or which department each guy has to go, right? And after that, you are giving him his proper desk, seat, and everything, so that you can he can start working on them, right? So the very first thing is, like, you have identified the candidates, and you have identified the different departments, right? So here the kind of department or the boundary or his roles and responsibilities, whatever you call. So that's what you need to define here, saying that, okay, anybody who is part of this IP address range is part of my site, right? Anybody who is part of a different IP address, he is part of a different site, right? So such kind of boundaries needs to be created. And finally, you will install SCM client. So these are the 3 steps you do to convert an unmanaged client to a managed client, right? So let's do this now. So the very first step is discovering the assets, right? So guys, do you have any questions in these three steps? Anyone?
No, Manu.
Perfect. So where do you discover? So I told any such kind of activities, where do you go? You go to administration node, right? So straight away, let's go to administration node. Let me close all the other nodes. Yep. So discovery methods. Okay. So I told from where are you going to discover these machines? You're going to discover them from Active Directory, right? So currently these are the different discovery methods what we have. Forest discovery, AD group discovery, AD system, AD user, then the heartbeat and network discovery. Okay, so let me start with the low hanging fruit, which is easier to understand, AD system discovery. So what does the name suggest? It says that using this particular discovery method, you can discover a system computer from Active Directory, right? So let's go and configure that. So currently it is disabled. Let's go and enable it. Guys, you're all able to see the screen? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, Manu.
Okay.
Yes.
So before checking this enable checkbox, so what we need to tell is we need to give the location from where it has to discover, right? Because we are just, if you just enable it, it should know to which location it has to go in the Active Directory and frame from where it has to discover. So the very first point is click here, add, okay, and give the container the location. So you can browse. So it will show your entire domain. So if you want to search the entire domain for the computers, you can directly select the mail app, that is at the root level. Or if you know all your computers are under specific OU like computers, or in your environment if you have different OUs based on laptops, desktops, or based on your geographical units, if you have different OUs, either you can select all of them individually, right? Or you can search at the root level, right? So for example, if you want to, say if you have 10 different OUs, right? I'm just giving you that example. I'll select one OU, then I can again go back and select one more OU. Like that, if you have multiple OUs, you can select individual OUs, right? That's how you do it. So let me delete them. So for the lab purpose, what we'll do is we'll select at the root level. Because it is a lab, hardly we have 2-3 machines, so it doesn't matter even if you're selecting root level. So otherwise what will happen in reality, if you're selecting root level, so the time taken for the discovery might be more, because it has to discover the entire route, whether there could be some OUs where you will not have any computers or any other things, but still it will be checking for each and every OU, right? So that's a time taking process. So in production, what we'll do is we'll try to give as many OUs which are actually genuine and valid OUs where you think the computers will be there. Go ahead, Amar.
Manohar, yeah, Manohar, I just wanted to check. So, will this discovery happen at any specific intervals, or it is only one time the discovery happens, or
Yes.
can it be forced to discover?
Yeah. So you are just one step ahead. That's the next tab I'm going to show you. Just
Okay.
hold your horses tight. In another 1 minute we'll be there. Okay. So uh, yeah. So we are selecting the container here, right? And in the what are the options that you can select is either you can recursively search the Active Directory child containers. So what we are telling it is not only just the parent OU, even if there are under that OU, if there are multiple child containers, go and check in each of these child containers and get the computers out, right? So let me go ahead and select the polling schedule. Yep, this is what you were asking, Amar. So by default, it occurs uh, once in a week, right? That is called as a full discovery. And if you want to schedule it, like if you wanted to make it more aggressive that every single day it has to run, or less aggressive like once in 15 days, so that's what you can schedule here, right? You can make it monthly, weekly, or any custom interval you can give. And apart from this, this is what is full discovery. So apart from that, there is something called enable delta discovery. So what will happen is, say suppose today, that is on Saturday, the full discovery has run. Okay. On Monday, some 5 computers have been added to your Active Directory domain. Some 5 new computers have been added. Okay, on Tuesday, another 5 computers have been added. So if you are waiting only, if it runs only once in a week, so all these throughout the week, say suppose there are some 30-40 computers which are added, and all of them has to wait for 1 week until they can be discovered by SCCM and start SCM start managing them. It will be difficult, right? So what we will do is, we have something called delta discovery. What this delta discovery will do, it will only identify for any new computers that are joined, right? It will not do the full discovery. It will check if there are any new computers are joined, and only those delta would be added to SCCM, would be discovered by SCCM. So this can be run every 5 minutes. So there is no performance impact because it is only checking for any new additions, right? So but the full discovery, what it will do, say suppose you have removed some of the computer, some of your employees left, or some of them are the test machines. You have just finished your test machines and you have removed them from the domain. So but there will be such kind of stale accounts which are still in SCCM, but they are not there in the Active Directory domain. So that kind of discovery will happen at the time of every 1 week. When it does the full discovery, it will find, okay, these are the valid computers and these are the invalid computers. So it will mark accordingly in SCCM. It will not delete in SCCM. The records will be still there in SCCM, but it will just mark them as, okay, these are no more there in the Active Directory. These are still or inactive computers, right? Make sense, guys?
Where we will find those such kind of things?
The stale or inactive computers.
Yes, in valid computers which is
So
still
what?
not rated.
Yeah. So once these machines are discovered, you'll find them under assets and compliance under the devices and device collections, right? That's where you'll find the computers. So on the computer properties, you'll find like what are the computers which are valid and which of the computers are inactive. So that's what you can see in the assets and compliance. But it will not delete for a reason, because say suppose an account has been removed from domain, but still if you the moment you delete it from database or you're deleting it from the console, you are missing the entire past inventory related to that machine, like any history related to that machine. You might still want to have that for some time, right? So what we'll do is, immediately SCM will not delete it, but there are some site maintenance activities which says that if particular machines data discovery record, DDR, that's what we call the discovery record, right? If the discovery record is inactive for X days, X number of days, like for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, purge that computer, then delete it from the SCM console and the database. So like that, we have some site maintenance activities. Okay, when we get into the site maintenance activities, I will explain that. So what those site maintenance activities will do, they will depend on the flag that is being set by this particular discovery. This discovery will say that, okay, out of these 100 computers that you have, so these are the new computers which are joined, these are the existing current and active computers, and these are the computers which I found like they are not there in Active Directory, but still they are in the SCM console. So based on that information, the site maintenance activities which runs like whatever the days that you fix, like 30 days or 60 days, so they will find out these machines and they'll delete them. So you will not you don't need to manually delete them. Okay. So this is about the schedule, and going to the Active Directory attributes. See, as I told you,
Got a question.
yes, Samar?
I just wanted to know, is there a specific network bandwidth which is getting utilized each time it discovers? Can we set some bandwidth for these or no?
No, bandwidth is not required. So if I have to give those numbers, I think last time when I did capacity planning for somebody else, we found like it's like hardly 2 KB is the data per discovery. So that's the maximum transaction. So it's not that much bandwidth intrinsic task. It is not.
Okay, and this was for 2 KB for how many users was it? Like how
Uh,
many devices
I believe it is for
approximately?
I believe it is for 10,000 devices.
10,000. Okay.
So it's not that much intrinsic task that you need to worry about. Only thing is make sure that this polling is not too aggressive, like running every single day. It doesn't make any sense unless and until if
Okay.
your users or if your the client, he says that we keep on onboarding and offboarding users on every single day. If it is that much aggressive, then only then make it one day. Otherwise 7 days by default should be enough, should be fine.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So the Active Directory attributes. So guys, you remember in the domain controller I showed you, like for each and every user and computer, you'll have some attributes, right? The last logon time, the the OU to which it belongs to, email ID, SID for link. So like that, there will be so many attributes associated with each and every account, right? So by default, out of those attributes, so the ones that you see here, right, the one that I'm highlighting, so these are the default attributes which Sccm will pull when it is discovering a computer. Since it is already discovering a computer, as part of discovering the computer, it will also get the objects GUID, it will get the object SID and also DNS host name, it will get the UAC status, your last logon timestamp, distinguishing name. So these are the default, some of the default attributes that it will pick. So apart from these attributes, if you want some additional attributes to be discovered and stored in SCCM, right, in the SCM, so when you right click the computer, you want to have these attributes, right? So you can add those new attributes here, right? So these are the other attributes which are available in Active. So you're not actually creating these attributes. These are already there in Active Directory. So you can pull them over here and make use of them. So guys, can you tell me any one good reason why you need these attributes? Any real-time scenario?
Is it for reporting purpose?
Mm-hmm. Reporting, okay. Any other real-time scenario that you can think of? Okay. See, what will happen is, say suppose you wanted to you have in your office you have different specific groups, okay. Within your IT there are some people who are working on who are developers who are working on a separate network on a different environment altogether, and then you have some support guys, and you have some architects and consultants working on a different thing, some infrastructure guys are there. So within your IT department, so suppose there are different teams working on different devices and different kinds of environments, okay. So they might require a different set of applications altogether, right? Their requirement is different. So now what you'll do is, uh, if you have an attribute in Active Directory, you say suppose you create a custom attribute in Active Directory saying that department, okay, and in that department you populate the data for every computer. You will populate while creating the computer itself in Active Directory. Your system administrator will will populate the data saying that okay, create a computer, populate his department as IT dev. Another computer, his department is IT infra. Another computer, IT support. Like that, he will be creating every new computer that he creates. He'll create the value department as something like IT dev, infra, or IT support. Now, as part of Active Directory discovery, what you will do, you will say that okay, not the default attributes. I even want the Active Directory, the department information also, right? So you will select the department here. So now what will happen? SCCM is aware of to which department he belongs to, right? So keeping that in mind, what you can do is tomorrow if somebody says that okay, I want these two applications for all my IT development guys, and these two applications for my support guys, and these two applications for my infra guys. So since you have that information in SCCM, you can group them and you can create the collections. I was talking about collections, right? So while creating the collection, you can say anybody whose department is equal to IT dev, put all of them automatically into this collection. Anybody whose department is equal to IT support, put all of them into this collection. Like that, you can create a collection, automatic collection or a group. So by default, anybody's department is identified, all of them are grouped into one collection. Now you can push the required softwares, right? So when the business requirement is like we wanted to distribute a certain application to a certain department and another application to another department, then the first thing you'll do is you'll ask them, is there a way to segregate them? Is there a way to identify who is belong to which department? Okay, they will say yes, we have an Active Directory, we can create an attribute, and in that attribute we can populate that information. Fine. So you populate that in Active Directory as part of Sccm. I'll pull that information into Sccm as part of discovery, right? And after that, I'll create a collection. I'll based on these attributes, and then I will distribute accordingly to each department. Distribute the exact application, right? So this is a kind of a based on your business requirement. This is a real-time solution that you would provide. Anybody, any doubts here?
Lord, we have extended this Active Directory now. Due
Yeah, we
to
have
that,
extended the schema.
yes, due to that, these attributes are visible, right?
No. So these are the default attributes. See the attributes that you're seeing, object grade, DNS host name, these are the default ones. The attributes that we talked in the extension of schema, those are specifically related to Sccm, like the what is your site, what is your management point, what is your distribution point. So those are entirely different. Don't confuse between schema and this. Schema is entirely a different concept. Okay. So this, the attributes that you're seeing here, okay, let me show you the domain controller. I think that way it will be beneficial for you. Others, any questions?
No, Manan.
So please feel free to ask if you have any doubts, or if you want me to go a little slower, let me know if I'm going fast. At the same time, if I'm, keep on dragging on a particular topic and giving you more examples, even then let me know. I'll cut short myself. I just give more and more examples, keeping each one of you in mind.
Yes, you can give, but I don't have much knowledge on it, so I'm just not able to answer the question.
Mm-hmm. So Manju, don't worry. We are all of us are taking baby steps, and we'll be there. Okay.
Okay.
So see, when you select this computer, okay, let me select May Test 01 computer, and you go to properties. You have these attributes, right? So these are the default attributes which are coming with in Active Directory, right, guys? You can see all these different attributes here, right? So for these attributes, what I'm saying is, if you want to pull this attribute information into your Sccm, by default Sccm is pulling only few of them. It is not pulling all these attributes. It is only pulling one or two, right? For example, you have here when changed is an attribute here, right? When is this particular computer account created? For example, when is this computer account created? There is an attribute for it, right? So now let us go back to our Sccm and see, do you have that by default? So the ones above, these are the ones which Sccm is pulling, right? It is only pulling some 8 or 10 items. It is not pulling that when created. But if you see here, I'm sure it should be here. When created should be here. Unfortunately, I don't see it here. I think I've picked up a wrong example, but let me see before I give up. You have USN created, you don't have that when created thing. But yeah, most of the times, if all these attributes, let me take any other attribute. Luckily, if I can take a good example this time. User account control, anyways, it is pulling it up. Primary group ID or password last set. Let us check for password last set. So definitely password last set is not there in the default ones. Okay, let's check if we have it here. Yep, you have it there. Password last set. So currently Sccm is not pulling this password last set attribute. It is only pulling this about 10, right? So if you want to even pull password last set, this is what you do. You add it and apply, right? So going forward, Sccm will also pull the password last set attribute. So here in Active Directory, if you see for this computer, the password last set is like on 10th of May, right? So this information going forward, it will be available in Sccm database as part of discovery, and based on that, maybe you can use this for your inventory purpose, reporting purpose, as well as based on that, if you want to perform any action, like as I gave one example of software distribution, if you want to perform any operations based on that, yes, you can pull from here. Make sense, guys? Sai?
From where, like, because I was seeing that you was not able to find that password set. What is that password, last password, and if like we are not finding in the default place, how do we have to add it?
You are not finding means, are you checking it in your lab? Is that what you meant?
No, no, no. Like just now you were seeing somewhere and you didn't find, and you went again for checking other place and you found some. In that case, kind of case.
Nobody. See, this is my domain controller. Currently the one that you are seeing here is my domain controller. Okay. In my domain controller, in the Active Directory use and computers, I found this computer mate S01, right? That is there in my Active Directory use and computers. So I am checking for this computer's attributes, right? So in Active Directory, I have this value called password last set. This value is there in Active Directory. But when I'm going to the Sccm console, I hope the screen refreshed and you can see my Sccm console now. Can you?
Yes.
Okay. So when I go to my Sccm console and I check the Active Directory attributes that Sccm is going to pull, right? So when I check there, I see only few attributes what Sccm is discovering, right? It is not discovering the bad password count or the password last set. It is not discovering that. So it is showing that, okay, these are the available attributes. Apart from the default attributes, these are the available attributes. If you want me to discover, I will discover. So that's what it is saying. So I'm saying, okay, go ahead and discover this as well. So next time what will happen if, say, suppose 10 new computers are added into your Active Directory domain. So while fetching those 10 new computers, it will also fetch some information related to those 10 new computers, right? So along with that information, it will also get this password last set next time. Next discovery, it will get this password last set and it will put into the Sccm database. Make sense?
Yeah. Okay. What is the password last set?
So
Yeah.
this is just an example. It can be anything for that matter. Password last set is one just
Okay.
attribute of your Active Directory computer. So today I just
Okay.
selected password last. It can be anything. I can select admin count, admin description, any other attribute.
Okay. Because you specifically searched and I
No,
don't
no,
know, so I wanted to ask.
no, 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 no. The idea of selecting that one was because I have some value along with that. Others are just not set. So I just picked any randomly anything which has a value.
Okay. Then whatever the value we have, that only we need to select. Is it?
Nobody, no, 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 no. See, why we are selecting these attributes? We are selecting these attributes based on your business requirement. If in your company you require to get this password last set into SCCM console, only then we are selecting this. That is completely dependent on your business requirement. If you're
Okay.
right, if they ask you like we wanted to know what is when is the last password set. So by default, SCM will not have that information. It is there just in your Active Directory. So if that is your business requirement, yes, you'll pull that attribute. Right? So it is not that
Okay.
wherever you have value, it is based on your requirement.
Okay.
Okay. So any other questions, guys?
Manohar, I have got a question.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
So as a best practice, or you must have seen many projects wherein these active directory attributes have been added. Is it by any chance kept as default settings, or there are certain times wherein you have to add up the attributes? I know it's a business requirement, but as a
I got your
looking
question.
into various configurations, was
Yes.
it all the time kept as default, or was it scenario? The reason is, should we look into querying or trying to understand to do this settings,
Mhm.
what are the attributes we'll have to identify from the customers, or the requirements what we have to capture?
I got it. I got it. See, this particular attributes thing, when you are setting up the infrastructure, right, you will go with the default.
Right.
So say suppose your responsibilities is to create or create infrastructure for your client, just to build a SCCM infrastructure for them, right? If that is the case, if you're in the designing area, I know from where you're coming and from where this question is coming. So if you're into the designing and creating a solution for them, in that case you'll just go ahead with a default selection, default active directory attributes. Typically,
Okay.
selecting the additional attributes will be part of the SCCM day-to-day SCCM administrative activities. So what will happen once
BAU.
the server is set up, SCCM console is there, suddenly they'll get, after say suppose 1 year down the line or 2 years down the line, they're based on their leadership team requirements or the management requirements. They will ask that they will come back to the SCCM administrator, whoever is managing SCCM. They'll come back to him. They'll ask that, can we get a report like this, or can we deploy applications based on department. So when such business requirement comes as an ongoing request, right, so that's when he or she will go into the console and add few more attributes to it, right? So otherwise, by
Okay.
default, you will just go ahead and have the default active directory attributes.
Okay. And the other part of the question is, in case I add up the attribute at a later stage, what is the replication time? Is it quickly, or it requires some syncing to be done after
Mhm.
the end of the day or something like that?
No, no, nothing like that. So it is like the very next Active Directory polling cycle. Whenever it discovers, it will discover that.
Okay.
Say suppose if the Active Directory polling cycle is once in a week, right? So you have performed
Right.
today. So maybe if it has already run on Monday, so on Monday itself, next Monday, the coming Monday again, it will run and it will pick it up, right? So it is just based on the its cycle. It is not based on any other syncing mechanism as such.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. Right. And then you have options. So here you have a couple of options saying that only discover computers that have logged on to your domain in a given period of time. So you can select like anything which has just logged on in last 90 days or last 30 days. Only them you have to discover, and others do not discover, right? So there could be some stale computers even in your Active Directory itself. So most of the times what will happen, there will be different departments managing your Active Directory, okay, across the globe. Somebody would be adding the computer accounts, right? And after some period of time, the user leaves the company, or the particular device is rebuilt and it has been given a new name, and somebody else, it has been given to somebody else, but still the old computer name is still in your Active Directory, right? So when you have such kind of computers which are still there in Active Directory, but there is no physical computer as such, only the computer name is there in the domain. Many a times this will happen because there will be multiple teams managing it, and there will not be a proper cleanup activities which will be happening on your Active Directory. So in such cases, what will happen is, what you can do is you can select this option and say that in the last X number of days, in the last 30 days, if there is no computer, if the computer has not logged on to the domain itself, don't even discover it into SCM. I don't need such computers in my SCM, right? So this is where you will select that. Clear? Similarly, only discover computers that have updated their computer account password in a given period of time. So this is like logged on to a domain in a given period of time, and this is related to the computer account password set. Okay, they have updated the computer password in a given period of time. So in the last 90 days, if somebody has updated the computer password, right? So that's when you wanted to discover those computers. So these are two other things that we select, but by default I have rarely seen people selecting them. At least the above one people would select, but the below one I have seen very rarely selecting. The above one people would select if their cleanup, if they are not sure that their Active Directory is not cleaned properly. Because what will happen is, I'll tell you where the impact will be. For example, you have 100 computers. Okay, out of these 100 computers, some 20 computers are there are just computer names in Active Directory, but there are no physical computers. Those are already been rebuilt or user left, but still the computer account is still there in your Active Directory. Out of 100, 20 are like that. Now, if you are pulling all the 100 into your SCM, okay, and if you are pushing the patches, now when you see the patch compliance report, you want to see how many patches are installed. In the patch compliance report, it will show that, okay, even though you have pushed patches to all the 80 computers, because 20 are not there, right? You have pushed all to all the 80 computers. In the patch compliance, it will say that your compliance is only 80%. Because I see that there are 100 computers in SCM. Out of this 100, we are able to push patches only to 80 machines. So 80% is your compliance. So which is a big problem, right? Because typically all companies want compliance at least 95 or above, not below 95 percentage. So then it will be hit back to you from your management asking, why is the compliance so low? Why are you only pushing to 80% of the machines? Why? Then they will ask you to troubleshoot and see how you can increase the compliance, right? But the fact is, you have actually done 100% compliance. The other 20 computers are just there in Active Directory names, but there are no physical computers, right? So you don't want to get blamed for this stale computers in Active Directory. So what you will do, you'll come here, you will say that only discover computers that have logged into your domain in the last 30 days. Then all these 20 computers will be deleted, right? From both, it will not even discover. So it will be deleted from the Sccm, as well as it will not even discover from Active Directory. This way it will now show in SCM console, you have 80 computers and you have installed patches to all the 80 computers. That way you are 100% compliant. Right, guys? Any questions here?
So if the computers have already been discovered, how do we clean up? Does it get cleaned up if we select this option, or
No,
no, only for
if
future
they're
ones?
already discovered, as I told you, there are site maintenance activities to clean up them if
Okay.
they're already discovered. This is for even before they're discovered. You can select this so that next time any new computers, when it is discovering, right, that's when this will be helpful.
Okay. And now the second part of the question is, what ways does an account password, if it has not been reset or updated, how does it affect the reporting or anything with regard to SCCM?
The computer account password, no, I haven't seen
Yeah,
any impact because
the
of that.
second, yeah,
Yeah.
second option. Any purpose for having this? If people have not updated the password,
Mhm.
does it impact or affect anyways? What was the
Uh,
idea of having this option? I'm not sure.
yeah. So to be very honest with you, I've never ever used a computer account password reset option, because we typically, what the password that we would set in our machines is the user password, right? User account password, what you would set. Active
Right.
Directory user account password. So I don't find a reason, means at least I'm not aware of why this is required. And out of all these different customers that I've seen, this was never utilized. This was never checked for any purpose. So I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I'll get that information. Maybe there might be a reason keeping in legacy machines, like NT machines, or the 2003 or earlier machines, maybe keeping them in mind. This might have been there. So I'll check if it is still valid in the current days, because I have not seen
Okay.
any
Sure.
user, anybody using this. I think maybe this is for the older machines, legacy machines.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so guys, if you're clear with this, I'll just give a quick summary on this part, because we need to do the same thing for others as well. So once you understand this, it is the same kind of properties you will find for each one of them. So let me go quickly here. So first thing, what you're doing is you're selecting the scope or the location where it has to check for computers, because this is Active Directory system discovery, right? So the first point is check the location for the computers. So I gave the location as the entire root. You can either give the entire root, or you can specify exact OUs that you have. So that's the first step. Second step is polling schedule. So there are two types of polling. One is the full discovery, the other one is a delta discovery. So full discovery runs once in a week by default, and delta discovery runs once in 5 minutes, right? So the motto behind these two is like full discovery. It is, as the name suggests, it will be discovering all the objects again fresh. It will create fresh data discovery records every time. It will check once in a week. It will check all the computers. Whereas delta discovery, it will only try to find what are the new computers that are added into Active Directory domain. So this will be running every 5 minutes to make sure that any new computers that are added, they are immediately discovered. Within 5 minutes, they are discovered into SCM console, and once they are discovered, SCM client agent will be installed on them, and the machines will be managed by the Sccm. So that's the reason discovery will be very aggressive, like 5 minutes. And as I told you, this is not that much bandwidth intrinsic task, so you don't need to worry about that. And Active Directory attributes. So there are some 10 default, approximately 10 default attributes that SCCM will pull as part of this discovery. So every time it is pulling a computer into SCCM, it is also pulling some information about that computer. Like these are the attributes, like the UAC, last logon timestamp. So there are some values it is pulling into SCCM. So apart from these values, if you want some additional values, so these are the available attributes, right? You can select any one of them based on your business requirement and add them to the discovered attributes, right? And finally, options. In options, you have discover a computer that has not logged on to a domain in a given period of time, or based on the computer account password. So I personally have not seen anybody using the computer account password. However, I'll get information on that for you. But yes, logging on based on the logged on to a domain and discovering the computers, that is helpful in case of compliance management. Okay. So finally, what we need to do, we have to enable this discovery and say apply. So it says, do you want to run full discovery as soon as possible? Yes, run it as soon as possible, because this is the first time that you're doing it. Run it as soon as possible, and after that, run once in a week. What you can also do is, you have run full discovery now as well. So say suppose it's not the delta discovery, and there are some issues, and you wanted to run the full discovery immediately. You don't want to wait for 1 week. Okay, you have done some site maintenance task or something you have performed, and you wanted this full discovery to run immediately. So you can come here and right click and say run full discovery now. Okay, this is in some rare scenarios. Yeah, Manju.
Uh, what if we select no? By when it will do the discovery then? When just you hit the S right before that.
It will run once in a week, right? So you have enabled now, so next week it will run. And
No, if what if we select no, not to run as soon as possible? So what will happen? I mean, when okay, as per the schedule it will run, is it?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're not selecting as soon as possible, so then what will happen every 7 days, right? So automatically it will run on the coming week. It will run. If you don't want it to run now, so after next week it will run. After that, every week on week, it will be keep on running.
Okay. Okay. What is the best practice like? What is the date we need to keep? It should be by default best to keep 1 week or anything we can keep 2 days after 2 days something like that.
Yeah, that's what I've explained on that. So what I was telling you, like it is better to leave it as 7 days, unless and until it is better to leave as 7 days. Okay, unless and until in your customer's environment they think that they will be keep on adding users and computers more often than 7 days. They think that okay, we keep on adding and we keep on removing computers like every single day. That's a mandatory task that we do. Okay, then you can talk with them, and then based on that you can make it 2 days or 3 days. But it's better to leave as 7 days, because by default in any company it is not that aggressive that you keep on deleting computers every single day, right? Even if you delete computers a single day, that is not going to impact the it is okay if you remove that computer out of SCCM scope after a week, right? So I don't think making it more aggressive makes any sense. Anyways, you have delta discovery, which is finding out any new computers added in every 5 minutes. So I don't think you need to make it more aggressive. You can leave it as 7 days.
Okay.
So now let's go to user discovery, and you'll find it similar what and all we have given. So apart from except for system, here it is user. That's the only difference, right? So Active Directory container. So this time also I can give individual OUs, or I can give the root domain. So say suppose if I give the root domain here, I go to polling schedule, right? Delta discovery, and I have this full discovery. Then I have Active Directory attributes. So if I have any new attributes, I can provide those attributes here, right? That's it. It's similar to your system discovery. So I'll select user discovery, apply. It says, do you want to run as soon as possible? I say yes. Okay, group discovery. So system and user discovery are pretty straightforward. Now tell me, what is group discovery and why do you need it? Just think about it and tell me. What do you think is group discovery and why do you need it?
Maybe if there are a group of department which is having a separate security. So if there are any adding, removing is happening separately, it may fetch and put it like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Active Directory you have this security groups, right? So those groups, what you have in Active Directory, say suppose you want to get the membership of those groups, right? In one group, for example, let me give a, okay, yesterday somebody was telling about, what is that application? A Team Center. Anil was talking about Team Center, I guess, right? Right, Anil? Was that Team Center? Is the application?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have Team Center application, okay, and you know, in your organization, Team Center is used by some 50 people or some 100 people. Not everybody will not use Team Center, right? Now, these 100 people, you'll create a group, call them as Team Center computers, Team Center devices, and you put all these 100 computers into that Team Center group. Now, if SCCM can fetch that information, the group membership, right? So what we'll do is we'll enable this Active Directory group discovery. We'll tell that, okay, any new groups that are added and their group memberships, fetch that information. So now SCM will know that there is a Team Center computers group and there are 100 computers in that Team Centers group. This information is there with SCCM now. Now how can you make use of it? What you'll do, you'll go to collection. You'll say that anything which is part of this group, Team Center group, or add all those users from Team Center group and add them into the collection, right? And on that collection, you will have this Team Center deployed within SCM. Okay. Now you think about the how easy the management will go, how easy your day-to-day task will happen. Once this particular setup is done, tomorrow any new user will come. He will ask, I want Team Center. Instead of the request coming to the SCCM administrator, it will go to a Active Directory systems system administrator. So what the system administrator is supposed to do, he will have access to Active Directory. So he'll just go to Active Directory and add the user to that group. So there is no need of SCCM administrator. Even a system admin, he can just add that computer to that Active Directory group, because in the backend, that group information is discovered as part of this discovery what you're doing here. And then because of that information is there in SCCM, a collection is created, and on that collection, Team Center is already deployed. So this way, anybody who is just adding a computer account to Active Directory group, they are getting the application from SCCM. Right, guys? Make sense?
Yes.
Yep. So this way what you're doing is you're taking out of some of the overhead tasks on the SCCM administrator and pushing them to a regular system admin. So let me do that here. So I can add a group, or I can add a location so that it will search for those groups. If I have individual groups, I can add those groups and tell, okay, only check for the group membership under these groups. Or you wanted to have it under even for new groups. So what you'll do, you'll say location, okay, and you can give the location here, and you can name anything for that. Okay, 80 groups. Polling schedule is the same again. the same funda, full discovery and enable delta discovery. Then you have options, again the same thing, because groups will include both computers and users. So again, you have the same settings which are related to computer discovery, like logged on to your domain or the computer account password, right? Discover the membership of distribution groups. So by default, distribution groups are not considered. Distribution groups are for your sending your mails, right? So those are not for sending any permissions or anything as such. Those are not for using resources, right? So typically you create security groups for that, for permissions and other things. So here it is saying that even if you want to get the membership of distribution groups, that's an add-on thing. By default, it is not checked, but if you require, yes, you can select the discover membership from distribution groups. So is this part clear? The group discovery and the benefit of it? Amar, Manju, Sai, any questions?
No, Manoj.
Cool, cool. Okay, so I've discovered the group as well. Any group which is under the root domain. So groups are done, system done, user done, forest. Any guesses? What will be there in the forest?
Different regions.
Mm-hmm. So if you have to tell in Active Directory terms, in the Active Directory terms, what do you call them? Different regions and all?
I think it's called sites.
Perfect. We call them sites. So we have sites, subnets, right, and different IP ranges, right? So basically what will happen is when you're selecting Active Directory Forest Discovery, it will check for all the different sites and subnets that you have in your environment, so that that information is populated here and automatically boundaries are created. You remember why do you need to create boundaries? Boundaries are to define the based on your IP address range to which DP it has to go, or from where it has to get the site code and all other information, right? So basically what you do is you will select this thing properties when you enable it. So you don't have any option to select a particular group or node, right? It will just go ahead the entire forest, and here what you're saying is automatically create Active Directory site boundaries when they are discovered, right? So automatically it will create some boundaries based on the sites you have, or you can also say automatically create IP address range boundaries for IP subnets when they are discovered. So it will say basically what is that it is discovering? It is discovering sites, as you can see as sites and subnets, right? So once in a week it will run and it will fetch the site and subnet information. If you want, it can automatically create boundary groups. Otherwise, I mean to say the boundaries, or else if not, it will just discover and have that information for you. Guys, are you clear with sites and subnets, and do you understand what I'm talking here? If not, raise your hand.
We understand.
Cool, thank you. So let's proceed further. So I've not selected automatically create. Even if I does that, it doesn't make much difference because we just have one site, right? Only one domain and one site. That would be the default site. Okay, so forest discovery is done. And okay, when we get into boundaries, I'll talk about these sites and subnets. And coming to network discovery. So any guesses? What is that which is pulled as part of network discovery? As part of network discovery, as it says, anything which are network devices like your printers, right? Your VoIP phones, right? IP-based phones, right? All that based on the, you can provide a subnet, or you can provide the if they are SNP devices, you can give the SNMP. Who just joined? Or I think Manju lost the connectivity. Okay, right? So here the network discovery is something which is by default, as you can see, it's disabled, right? And most of the times you don't use this network discovery, to be very honest with you. In any environment, when you are configuring the discovery methods, you'll configure the first four: forest, group, system, and user. Heartbeat discovery is anyways enabled. By default, it is enabled. Network discovery is one thing which you don't enable unless and until you know that you wanted to do asset management. You want to use SCCM for asset management, and you wanted to know how many network devices that you have, in which OU or which location, where do you have printers, where do you have some other network devices. That's only scenario where you will go with network discovery. Other than that, because you'll not be pushing any patches to it, you'll not be pushing any operating systems, you will not be managing it. It's only for the inventory purpose that you do. Make sense? Any questions here?
No.
Okay. So I'm not enabling this as well. That's not required. Okay. Heartbeat discovery. So as the name suggests, can any one of you tell me what is heartbeat discovery?
To check the SCCM clients are active or inactive, and what was the last heartbeat date, time, stamp.
Perfect. Perfect. So other discoveries are actually discovering the object and putting in your environment. But once the objects are in your environment, you wanted to see how well they are communicating with your management point and whether they are actually, as you said, they're actually active or not. If they're not active, you'll just put a flag on it, and based on the flag, as part of site maintenance tasks, you can delete those inactive objects, right? You are not deleting based on this, you're not deleting as part of discovery method. You're just finding the heartbeat discovery, and then you'll update the database or the DDR, which is discovery data record. So in that record, you're mentioning whether this is active or inactive, and tomorrow as part of site maintenance tasks, you'll delete them. So let me show heartbeat discovery. So heartbeat schedule is once in a week. So it will be keep on updating every week that if all the 500 machines, say suppose if you're managing 500 machines in your console, it will tell you, okay, out of this 500 machines, some 450 machines are active, another 50 machines in the last recent heartbeat that I did last week, I couldn't get any information from them. They are not active. So like that, it will be keep on updating. So now what you can do is when you go to site maintenance tasks, it will show you, okay, when is the last heartbeat discovery found? Maybe if the heartbeat discovery was not found for 2 months, then delete that machine, right? Because say suppose somebody, typically it happens in European regions that people go for a month vacation. So it should not be too aggressive that you delete by saying like 14 days, 15 days, you shouldn't be deleting the computers from SCM. Give them some time, like a couple of months, and then delete the accounts, right? Any questions in discovery, guys? Okay, so let's proceed further. What's the next one? Bound.
No, one second.
Yeah, Neil.
If you say like I say stale computers or stale accounts, if you go into the like SSM admin directly delete it from it, or he will generate a report and give it to some department to check whether the machines are active or remove it from AD.
Good question. So you can also pull out the report and give it to the change management, or not the change management, or to the system
Yeah,
engineers.
system administrator.
Yeah, system administrators. You can still float it around, but see,
Okay.
that depends on the kind of discovery that you say. Say suppose if your discovery is like 90 days, okay. So
Yeah.
by default, the chances of somebody's computer not getting discovered for 90 days, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that means either the computer is having some issues like its WMI is corrupt, or some kind of issues that it has, and somebody needs to rebuild the repository of WMI or reinstall the client. But by default, that computer is not communicating with SCCM, right? So what we are deleting is we're deleting that account. So again, as part of your discovery, it will be again pulled, and it will try to install the SCM client, right? If it is not able to install SCM client, then wait a minute, let me take an example to give you a better understanding on this. Anil, you can just go on mute. So let me take an example for this. Say suppose there's a computer called ABC, okay, and it's showing in your heartbeat discovery like last 4 weeks. So every week heartbeat discovery will run, right? Last 4 weeks, it found that it is inactive. It is not communicating with your SCCM server, right? Now, you have a site maintenance task. Okay, site maintenance task. And what did you have in that site maintenance task? Like anything which is inactive for 8 weeks, or I'll put it in days, 60 days, delete it. Okay, so this is the task that you have, anything which is inactive. Now say suppose after 60 days this particular computer ABC, because it is inactive for 4 weeks, it will wait for another 4 weeks and it will find that okay, ABC is inactive, so that account is deleted. Now as part of discovery, right, AD system discovery, every week you have a full discovery, right? So what this full discovery will do, it will discover this ABC again, right, because it is still there in the active directory. So when it will again discover this ABC, what your SCCM will do, it will start pushing the SCCM client over it. It will try to install SCCM client. Say suppose if the machine is still active, it just have a problem with its SCCM SCCM client. So when it starts reinstalling it, this machine will get the client agent and it will start reporting back to the SCCM server. Say suppose if the problem is that there is no ABC machine itself, right? So again it will go back to this heartbeat discovery and that machine will be deleted back from your SCM console. So to cut this loop, so you're deleting it and again it is coming back. To cut the loop, what we are doing is in system discovery you have the option to say that if something which is not logged on to domain for last 60 days or last 90 days, don't even discover it. So as part of site maintenance activities, you are deleting it and you don't want that machine to come back into your system discovery. So you have put a filter there saying that if this machine is not logged on to the domain for last 60 days, don't even discover it back. That way, if the machine is really having some problem, that means there is no machine at all, it is completely deleted and it will never come back. If the machine has some problem, it will be deleted, but it will come back and it will get the SCM client agent installed on it. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So any other questions in the discovery? So shall I proceed with boundaries now? So what is,
Manohar,
yeah, Manju,
can you go back there?
sure.
So I was got disconnected suddenly, so I think I missed what actually a network discovery.
Yeah, so network discovery is used to discover your printers or any other network devices, right? Like your IP-based phones. So such kind of SNMP devices. So those devices, if you want to discover, you'll use the network discovery. But I was telling others as well, like most of the times you don't need to do that because if at all you are using your SCCM as an asset management tool, okay, in that case, yes, you can go ahead and select that network discovery so that you'll have all these devices and you can pull out a report like in which location, how many printers I have, where do you have IP based phones and all that information. But that is only for inventory purpose or asset management purpose. Other than that, if you there is nothing, a software or a package or a patch that you will be pushing to these devices. So most of the times you don't go with network discovery, at least in SCCM. There are many other tools to manage these network devices, right? Okay. So going to boundaries. So as you can see here, a boundary is already created, and you all know how is this boundary created? It is created because of Active Directory Forest Discovery, right? As part of Active Directory Forest Discovery, we selected that if you find any site, so automatically create a site boundary, right? It has created a site boundary here. So guys, till now we are talking about boundaries. So any one of you can explain me what is a boundary according to you? What do you understand by boundary?
A specific IP subnet
Mm-hmm.
range.
IP subnet, IP address range.
Discovering overall all the way machines and handling purpose, I think. Correct?
Sorry, discovering what?
Discovering, establishing a network with the interrelated via boundary to all the peripherals, these devices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And keep coming. That's it. See, we'll take this example of last time I have the PPT, right? You all remember that hierarchy that we have in PPT? Or let me pull that if possible. Okay. So are you all able to see my screen? Is this refreshed? Is the screen refreshed for you?
Yes, Manoj.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's take this example, Houston, Seattle, and Boston. Okay. So the machines which are in Seattle, say suppose you don't have any, okay, let's go with the same example. You have one primary site in Houston, you have one in Seattle and one in Boston. Now, how do you know, how can you make sure that the machines which are in Seattle will communicate with the management point in Seattle? Okay, but and then the machines which are in Boston communicate with the management point in Boston, and the one which is here, they communicate to the management point in Houston. So how do you define that? How are these computers defined? How does SCM know? So what you do is, okay, in Houston, you know, a particular range of IP addresses are used, right? You'll select that IP addresses. You'll say 192.168.12.1 to 192.168.12.255. Say suppose these are the IP addresses used in Houston. You'll select, okay, these are my IP addresses in Houston. Okay, let me pull a notepad as well. Guys, can you just give me some IP addresses for each of these locations? Houston, can anyone give me an IP address range?
The one which you took now, 192.168.1.1.
Okay, so 12.1 to 192.168, 12.255. Okay, so this is in Houston. Now, can you give me one more for Houston itself? Any IP
Um,
address range? Come on, guys, you can do that. Just an IP address.
10.10.16.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
112.1.
Okay, 10.16.1.255. Okay, so these are the two different IP addresses that I have in Houston. Similarly, I'm taking that in Seattle. I guess I'm just giving based on. I guess I can give 10.1.1 to 10.1.255. Can I give that, or maybe they both are in the same subnet? Okay.
No, this would be on a different sub.
Yeah.
You can give 254.
Let's do that. Okay. And one more in Boston. This is just for an example, right? So I'll give 10.5.1.1 to 10.5.1.254. Good. So these are the different IP addresses, IP address ranges that I have. So what I'll do now, I'll create boundaries, one for 192 this and another boundary for this, right? Similarly, I can create for Seattle, so and also for Boston. So how many boundaries I'll be creating? I'll be creating 4 boundaries. For each IP address range, I have to create one boundary. So since I have 4 IP address ranges, I'll create 4 boundaries. Now, what we will do is, after creating 4 boundaries, so I'm creating 4 boundaries here, and after creating 4 boundaries, I have to group them together. So how many groups do I need? I need 3 boundary groups, because groups are required to assign to a site and to assign to a distribution point from where it has to. So two things you're getting out of a boundary group. One is to which site. Second one is to which DP or site server from where it has to download the content, right? So site and DP, these are the two information that you wanted to assign to a boundary group. So now what you are doing here is, since you have 4 IP address ranges, you will have 4 boundaries and 3 boundary groups and assign to site and DP. So here what I'll do, each boundary group, so I'll call them as BG1 is to Houston, right? And what are the members in this BG1? BG1 is for boundary group 1. What are the members of this boundary group 1? That is boundary 1 plus boundary 2 are the members of it. Then I have BG2, boundary group 2, associated with Seattle, and the members are just one boundary, that is B3. Then I have BG3, and I have Boston here, and the member here is 1, which is B4. Guys, does this make sense to you?
Yes,
Now,
Manu.
Now, if there is a computer which is whose IP address is 10.5.1.15, so to which site it has to talk to and to which DP it has to talk to?
So
10.5.1.15. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
it's to the B4 boundary 4.
Yeah. So 10.5.1.15 is the IP address of that machine. So it is coming under B4 boundary. And since B4 is a member of BG3, boundary group 3, now it is member of boundary group 3. So the site it has to talk to is Boston, right? And then that is a site code, right? And there is a management point. Now, what is the distribution point? So you will also give the distribution point name in the BG3. When you're defining a BG3, you'll also give the DP. So it will talk about the Boston DP. Whatever in Boston, whatever the DP you have, it will select that DP. And all these client machines, whenever they have any software or a patch or operating system, it will talk to the Boston DP only. It will not go to Houston or Seattle, right? So this way boundary groups are created, and the only purpose for boundaries and boundary groups are to identify your site and identify your DP. Make sense, guys? Let's do it practically now.
What is the site code meant?
What is a site code?
Yes.
Yeah, so when we installed, right, yesterday when we did the installation, for each site you have a site code. So why we are giving this site code is in each site you'll have management points, right? So if you go back to the first session wherein I talked about, you can create up to 10 management points in a primary site and 1 management point in the secondary site, right? So what will happen is, these client machines, for their day-to-day communication, for their day-to-day work, like it could be inventory management, it could be software distribution, for the day-to-day work, they have to first talk to the management point, right? So to which management point will it go? It should know whether it should go to anything which is under site code of Houston, or it should go anything which is under the site of Boston, right? So how will it know? So for that we are creating boundaries, boundary groups, and telling that anything which is under this IP address, the boundary group, it has to go to Houston only, it has to go to Boston. So based on that way, it is going to a management point within a particular site. Make sense? If you don't assign it to any site, how will it know to which management point it needs to talk to?
Okay.
Right? So let's do this practically and see how does it look like. So currently one boundary was automatically created from your forest discovery, but nevertheless we'll create one more. Create boundary. right? So I'll say this is my primary boundary, or let us give uh, the same naming like boundary 1 Houston, say suppose. Okay, I'm creating this for Houston. So these are the different ways that you can create a boundary. It is not necessary an IP address range. You can give based on IP subnet or active directory site, or if you are using IPv6 in your environment, you can even select an IPv6 prefix. So for our lab demo purpose, let me select IP address range, and let me give the same thing 192.168.12.1 to 192.168.12.254, right? Apply. So now I've created a boundary here based on the IP address, and its name is boundary 1 Houston, right? Now, is it part of any groups? It says 0 group count. So let me add it to a boundary group, right? So do I have any boundary groups? I haven't created any boundary groups. Let's go back a step and let me create a boundary group here. So I'll name it as all, okay, Houston boundary group, and I'll mention here as all boundaries in Houston. So if I have multiple boundaries based on IP address ranges, it could be, or based on the site, subnet, or IPv6 prefix. So all boundaries in Houston will part of this Houston boundary group. Now I'll add the boundary that I've created. Yes, so this should be part of Houston thing. Okay, now I have a boundary group and I have a boundary inside that, right? So in a boundary group, you have something called references. In boundary, if you see, there is nothing as such, right? If you go back to boundary, all you can do is you can just create a boundary and add it to a group, right? You can just create a boundary and add it to a group. Now, when you go to the boundary group, there is something called references. And as part of references, what you can do here is you can assign it to a site, use this boundary group for a site assignment. So I'm assigning it to a site like Houston, in this case, May, right? May primary site. And then I can also assign it to a particular DP to download. So I can say, so this is the site server from where site system servers, so from where you can download the content from, right? So I've assigned it to a site system server and I have also assigned it to a site. Now what will happen is if I go back to the boundary properties, go to the site systems, so it will show me the site system. There is no option for you to select any site systems from a boundary. That option is only available for a boundary group. So this is just a you can call it as a exam question, certification exam question, or interview question. So basically boundaries cannot be assigned to any sites or to any site systems. Only boundary groups can be assigned to sites and site systems. Boundaries can be just part of a boundary group, right? You can just view here the site systems it has been assigned to, but you cannot change or add anything. You can just add them to boundary groups. Guys, any questions here? Anybody, any questions?
No, Manu.
Cool, right? So similarly, what you can do is in real time, what we will have here, we'll have like some hundreds and thousands of boundaries and boundary groups. Okay, at least boundary groups will be limited like 50 or 100, but boundaries will be like huge, uh, maybe sometimes even more than 1,000, right? So how do you create all these boundaries? Right, it will be difficult in real-time environment to keep creating these boundaries for all the different IP address ranges that you have, or based on the different sites and subnets. It is really difficult to create thousands of boundaries, right? And that too, if your company is spread across the globe, keeping a track of all these networks, it will be a real tough time. So that's where forest discovery will come in handy. So when you go to forest discovery here, properties, you have this option to automatically create IP address range boundaries for IP subnets when they are discovered. So when you select this, it will do a discovery in the entire forest, and even if you have some 1,000 different IP subnets and different IP address ranges, all of them are discovered and automatically created. So at least boundaries are all created automatically. Now you can directly create boundary groups, because boundary groups will be minimal, right? You know, you have some 50 sites all over the globe, maybe you have 50 offices, You know there are 50 offices, so you can just create 50 boundary groups based on your office names, like Italy, France, Paris, like that. You can create different boundary groups, and in that boundary groups, since already all the boundaries are already identified, discovered, and created in SCCM, you just need to add them to the boundary groups and then refer them to the respective site and site systems. So in reality, you will not create all these boundaries. You will just discover them from forest discovery and have it there. Make sense? Clear?
So whatever is in the Active Directory, that will be created as a group, right, Manoj?
That will be created as a boundary, not as a group.
Boundary. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so as you can see here, I have created this IP address range, but I have not created this default first site name Active Directory site boundary. This was created by forest discovery, right? So similarly, for example, let me do this. I'm deleting this boundary for your understanding. Okay, I have not deleted the group. The group is still there. There is no members in it, right? There is a site system associated it, but there are no members in it, right? And I have this default first site name. Now what I can do is I can go to discovery methods and say, suppose if I run that forest discovery now, wait a minute, did I select the IP? No, I have not selected. Let me select this as well. So create based on the IP subnets, create boundary ranges. And if you run the forest discovery now, I'm hoping that based on my environment, it should create an IP address range. If I have in sites and subnets configured, I think I have not configured sites and subnets, right? We have just created the default first site should have the IP address range. Okay, let me do one more thing as well. Since I have enabled these discoveries and we are talking about the discovery methods, let me also show you the log files quickly, so that I think now it will be handy to look at the log files related to this. So where do you find log files for these discoveries? So where is this installed, SCCM installed in your C program files? Okay, on the site server, you'll go to C program files. You have Microsoft Configuration Manager, and then you have logs here, right? So if you see, let me do this, AD, okay, if you see here, you have AD sys discovery for AD system discovery, then you have AD user discovery, AD security group or the group discovery, right? And you have AD forest discovery. So these are the different log files created by the discovery, right? So now we have run forest discovery, right? Let me see how is it going. So last time it ran was at 8:37, right? And it says that it found one site and 0 subnets, right? So since it discovered one site, it has already created one site boundary. So that's the only thing that it found. Let me check if there's anything else. This was ran at 8:37. Yep. So all it found was one site and 0 subnets at 8 o'clock when we ran for the first time, when we configured for the first time. It found only one site and one subnet because we just have one site, right? We have one site, so that was found and that was created there. So in the boundaries, you have this based on the site, but related regarding the IP address range, I think since we don't have subnets created, we just have a site, we don't have subnets. So if I create a subnet in Active Directory domain controller, let me go back here. In reality, you'll have these sites and subnets, right? In the production, this is just a lab, so I have not created that. Active Directory sites and services. Right, so I have this site by default, a default site, first site has been created. Say suppose if I have a subnet here, one 192.168.12.0, 24. Okay, select that site that contains, this is the site. Okay, so now I have a site, I have a subnet here, right, in Active Directory. And if I go back to my Sccm and say go ahead and discover it now, full discovery, and let me open that log file, forest discovery. Discovered a subnet. Okay, and it says it has discovered one site and one subnet this time. So I'm sure it must have created an IP address boundary for that. Yes, you see there. So from 12.1 to 12.254, there's an IP address range boundary created. But if you go to the boundary group has no members. So it is, this activity is still manual for you. That's what I was telling you, right? Boundary will be created, not the boundary group. So what you need to do is you have to go to the boundary group and you can select the boundary here, sorry, here, right? Guys, any questions in creating the boundaries and boundary groups?
No, Manoj, nothing from mine.
Okay, let's proceed. Okay, Manju, you're saying something?
Yeah, nothing. Just make it a little bit slow so that because it is I feel it's going a little bit fast, not too, but little.
You mean to say a little bit fast is the video or my class,
Mm,
the way I'm delivering?
No, no, the creation of the steps.
Okay, okay, sure, sure. Sorry about that. Maybe I was a little fast. Okay, so 12.1 to 12.254, and so that's how your boundary is created and boundary groups are created. Now, moving further. So what are the next steps? You guys still remember our first notepad? What was there? Unmanaged client to managed client. Discovery of assets, yes, we did that. Define boundaries, yes, we did that. So what is left over? Installing Sccm client, right? So do you want me to continue with installing Sccm client today? It's already 8:45, or you want me to take it on Monday morning? Because client installation itself has itself will take some 45 minutes to 1 hour. The entire prerequisites of client installation and what are the different ways of installing a client. I don't want to rush in another 15 minutes about the entire client installation part. So
Sure,
what
Manoj,
we can have it
I'm
on
okay
Monday.
with the Monday.
Okay, okay. What about others?
Yeah, Monday is okay with me.
Mhm. Okay. Fine, guys. So what I'll do, because SCM client installation, there are different ways of installing a client. You can install it manually, you can install it from SCCM, you can push it to entire site, or you can install it as part of software updates, right? There are even you, if you want, you can install it through script. So there are almost like 5 or 6 ways of installing SCM client. And even installing a client, there can be so many parameters, like you can give the site code, you can give the management point to which it has to talk to. So like that, there are so many parameters, and there are various ways of installing client. Okay, so I want to discuss this on Monday, like what are the different ways and how do you, what logs you check for the client installation, right? So I'll park it for Monday. So today, do you want to see anything else apart from this in another 15 minutes, or you think you guys are done with for today's session?
I think that's it, Manoj.
Okay, okay.
The only thing, Monday, what time it will be? Will it be on
6
at
o'clock.
6 o'clock? Okay.
Yeah, 6 to 8. So going forward, it will be 6 to 8 itself. It's only today is
Okay.
my bad day, so I started a little late. But I think, yeah, from Monday onwards, it will be 6 o'clock.
Okay. And Manoj, also the video of Azure, how to configure in Azure.
Hmm. Sure. So what I'll do, so yesterday I wanted to create that, but after talking to Manju, I thought I don't want to confuse people. Like I don't want to people to fight with two different, new subjects. One is the SCCM at the one point, and the other point, if you are creating this on Azure, um, like if Azure itself is completely new to you, I thought it would be a problem for you, like creating the VMs there. And then if some other issue goes, like any network issue, it would be a little bit difficult to you, whether you didn't know whether to troubleshoot on the Azure part, why that particular operating system deployment is not happening, or the patchment, or is it a problem with the SCM itself, right? So that way, I thought I wanted to ask you guys, you still wanted to create on Azure, or you want to have it on your Hyper-Vs? If you guys are confident enough to have it on Azure, then I'll create a video over the weekend and I'll send it across to you. But I just don't wanted you to, fight with two new subjects while troubleshooting. You want me to create a video for Azure?
Yes, you can do it. We will take a once try if everything goes well.
Mhm. No, no. What I meant was you will be able to create VMs from the video that I'll share it with you. That's for sure. Okay. But tomorrow, once you are doing your software distribution or some patch management, what will happen is if there is a new error that you're seeing, right? In a Hyper-V, if you're seeing any errors, we know the issue could be some network at the network level, and we will proceed further. And if there is a real issue in SCCM, we can fix it. But when you're doing an Azure cloud, if there is any issue because of the setup that you made on cloud, I think it will take more time for you to troubleshoot. That's the only concern. You don't waste your time troubleshooting the cloud service. Okay.
Okay, then apart from Azure, what is the other way we can build Hyper-V? It?
Hyper-V or VMware on your laptop or the desktop that you have. So yesterday we had the same discussion with Manju, and Manju said that he will be upgrading his laptop by another 4 GB, I guess. Right. So if
Yeah.
that is a possible case, please go ahead with that so that you don't have too much of troubleshooting. But if there is no other way for you, you are up for learning the troubleshooting Azure as well. I'm fine with it. I'll send a video to you over the weekend, and you can pick it up from there. Okay.
Yeah,
Fine.
today I'm getting a reading plan so that I will let you know.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Fine. So, guys, if you have any questions, we'll proceed, or else we'll stop it for today. Okay then. Thank you, guys. I'll be uploading this video. Please go through it, and we'll meet on Monday morning. Take care. So
Yeah, bye
let me
bye.
stop recording and